welcome to the inaugural Thought Leaders Live, which we're going to chat with thought leaders in business and in life and in all points in between. And for the inaugural kickoff, who better to have on the show than our dear friend, James Roloff. I'm Greg Michio of Windbound for new visitors to the show, which would basically be everyone, right, James? If it's the
inaugural. It's the first show. Yeah, makes sense.
First show. So, James, little background on James before we get into the topic at hand. James is a seasoned, we're reading straight from his bio here, so it's...
Which bio is that? Did I supply that, or is that...
Yeah, you did supply this. I put in some of my own editorial comments here. See if you can see which ones they are. But no, James is a seasoned strategy consultant, passion for all things digital. He built his first website in 2001, and you were an old man, James, just for the record. And he has over 2 decades of experience building online businesses and digital marketing. I met James when he was building those websites back at Powder Keg, the name of the website development company. And we've worked together on numerous sites in there. Since then, he's gone on to found Roloff Consulting. And James, why don't you say hello to the folks at home and tell us a little bit about what you're doing at Roloff Consulting with your wife, Emma, and what your service is, especially in regards to social selling and digital leadership.
Yeah, well, first of all, Greg, thanks for having me. Just like you said, I'm old, which is why I started doing websites back 20 years ago. The truth actually is I started building websites back in middle school, so I was able to jump some numbers there, if that makes sense. But it's a legit experience. But I really appreciate you having me on. It's always good to chat with you and collaborate with you on different things. And yeah, like you said, we do digital strategy, particularly for sales teams and leadership teams. So a lot of that is helping sales teams and businesses learn how to leverage digital strategy to grow their business. So some stuff we talk about today, obviously, with content and creating content overlaps there, as well as social selling and just kind of broader change management in the world of digital strategy too. My wife in particular, her background is in enterprise software. So some of the speaking and workshop we do is kind of how do you have that mindset of getting used to operating and thriving in that digital world. So that's the background of who we are in the business that we operate.
And how long has Roloff Consulting been in business now? You started 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
We were 3.5 years ago. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So it's been a while, which is good.
No, it's fantastic. Yeah. And I mean, it's been great to watch you both grow the business, grow together as a team. And now you've got something really exciting coming up, the Ignite conference. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and what's going on with that?
Yes. So the Ignite conference is on November 13th here in Madison, Wisconsin, and we're calling it a digital leadership summit because we have people from different roles. We have executives, we have entrepreneurs, we have people from GitHub coming to speak. So people kind of all across the spectrum of digital leadership. And we're going to be talking about things such as, first of all, what is digital leadership? We're going to talk about mindset and having a disruptive mindset and overcoming internal challenges and external challenges to be successful with technology implementations. We're going to have personal branding people talking about how they use online content to be successful in the digital world. So the whole goal of the conference is to bring together business leaders who are trying to understand how do I thrive in this new digital world, and help them get the mindset, the strategies, the tools, the thought processes to be successful. So that's the goal. We're keeping it a relatively small conference size as far as number of attendees. We're trying to cap it at 150. So we can actually have some good networking, some good conversation beyond even just the presentation. So it's November 13th in Madison, Wisconsin. So we'd love to have you there if you're interested.
That's a great size. I mean, I've been to conferences which are much larger than that and smaller than that. And I do think that smaller size definitely allows for a lot easier networking and So very exciting. Looking forward to that. Let's take a minute and dive a little bit deeper into this concept. When I read the description about the Ignite digital leadership.
Yes.
Can you explain that to me a little bit?
Yeah. So digital leadership is more of just when you're looking at how do you lead in an organization from a perspective of understanding there's this new world of digital strategy. And obviously digital stuff's been around for a very long time. My family's previous business was a printing company. And we moved from analog to digital presses back in the mid 90s. So this whole concept's not necessarily a new one, but more of, you see that in the leadership role in particular, you need to have an actual thought process around how we're using technology nowadays. It's not as simple as just relying on your software vendors to tell you how to use technology. You have to be kind of leading there because disruption's happening so fast. And there's so much transformation happening that if you're not being strategic about it from a leadership perspective, you are going to have issues. And again, our focus is primarily in the sales perspective of how do you grow your organization. And in particular, we're looking at how do you expand your reach and your authority online so that people know who you are, they understand the business that you have, and they understand the problems that you solve through that content you're creating or through that footprint you have online. So a lot of our digital strategy, again, and digital leadership comes from how do leaders use technology in the sales world. But it's definitely more broad than that too.
Okay. Let's take another step a little bit to the side here now. And I want to, well, first of all, let me ask you, when we're talking about digital leadership versus thought leadership, yes. Could you kind of distinguish between the two and maybe give me your definition of thought leadership?
Yeah. So thought leadership to me is heavily on the content side of things. It's part of that world of personal branding, right? It's how do you put yourself out there? And we talk about this often with our content too, is to be a thought leader, you don't need to have brand new original ideas, but basically how are you becoming part of that conversation? How are you sharing your opinions? How are you sharing your experience? How are you kind of helping your industry grow through the content that you're creating? And I think, and obviously you can talk about this at length too, but thought leadership can be blog posts, it can be LinkedIn posts, it can be webinars you're doing, it can be a book that you've written or have someone write with you. So there's tons of different ways you can do thought leadership. But I think it's part of digital strategy often, right? When you look at how you're trying to grow your business online, you need to be doing some content. And I was actually just talking today with someone about this, how there was a company that relies heavily on Gen AI to create their content online. And they can do great SEO optimized content on their blogs all day long, and they can probably get some good ranking for it. But then their actual brand isn't known or trusted, right? People might go to their website because they ranked number 3 on Google for a good search term. But that thought leadership is what builds that trust. It's people actually identifying you as someone who has authority on the topic in your industry and wants to work with you. So you kind of need both, right? You need to be found, obviously. You need to have that visibility. But you also need the other aspect, which is, do people actually know who you are? They trust you and value your opinion on things. So I think that's where thought leadership really comes in. And to this exact point, in a world of Gen AI, when anybody can create any content, I think thought leadership stands out because it's actually relying on your personal experiences or your opinions or your thoughts or whatever you bring uniquely to the industry. So that's my long-winded way of saying that I think thought leadership is incredibly valuable.
I think you bring up a good point there too about the types of thought leadership. I just read a book called, I think it was The ROI of Thought Leadership. And the authors had painstakingly tried to establish ROI for true thought leadership content. And they had established a 14-to-1 ROI. But one of their criteria was that it had to be proprietary research, and it had to be research backed and much more quantitative. And I read that because at first I saw the 14-to-1 ROI, I was like, yeah. And then I saw, yeah. But it's very specific what they talked about. So I almost think of that as like a kind of a quantitative thought leadership. What do you think about? You mentioned what I would say is more qualitative thought leadership. Can you do that? Can you lead with your thoughts if it's not research backed?
Yeah, I think that's bull honky. That's
bull honky.
What was the Biden thing? Malarkey. That's malarkey.
Malarkey. All
right. I don't think you need to have original quantitative research to be a thought leader. And I think it's valuable. I'm a big data guy and I love that kind of stuff, but I don't think that can be a portion of what you're doing from a thought leadership perspective. But a lot of good thought leadership comes from sharing opinions.
Right.
It comes from curating other people's content and bringing it to your audience in a good package, kind of saying like, I went out, I am going across our industry. I'm looking at information. You do a great job of this too. And kind of delivering it to your audience in a way that's meaningful. So I think curating content, not just creating it, is a great way to do it too, as well as just sharing your experiences. So, everybody has their own unique experiences. And I think part of great thought leadership is, as you solve problems in your business, sharing that with your audience and kind of helping tell that narrative of overcoming challenges to maybe help your audience overcome their challenges too. So it's not some sort of, statistical thing. It's more of a N of one experiment, right? Like, here's what I did, here's how it worked. And again, you're in the SEO space. Some prolific SEO bloggers are literally just sharing their work in real time as they're experiencing things and playing around with algorithm and that kind of stuff. And sometimes it's data driven. Sometimes it's literally just saying, here's what happened on my website when I did this. So I don't think that thought leadership needs to be something like that. I think that putting that false high bar on that just discourages people from actually creating good thought leadership content. So I would heavily push back on that. I'd even go as far as saying too, some of the best, more prolific thought leaders are not creating original content. They're probably in that curation camp. I think of like a Tim Ferriss, right? Someone who's widely known. He's obviously written some books and done some things, but for the most part, he just interviews people and shares things he learns and comes across. So I think that to me is a more consultant kind of view of how thought leadership can be done, right? We don't all need to be McKinsey or PwC putting out long white papers that are 24-year-old, recent graduates put out in spreadsheets. So, like, that's not something that needs to be done to be a thought leader.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, most of us can't do that. And most of us probably don't make decisions strictly based on that. I think that trust factor, knowing the people that you're working with, goes a long way as well.
Yes.
Yeah, James, I'm going to share this. First of all, let me apologize. I think we're having some problems seeing the any questions that are coming in on LinkedIn. So, I'm just going to have to ask the questions on this one, but let me just share.
Well, so Greg, you're probably going to post this later too, or the recording of it somewhere.
I'm going to post it. Yeah.
We'll drop them in the chat, and then me or Greg will add them later too.
Right. You can do that.
Or the comment section, I should say.
That's right. We will do that. Let's look at this stat. This is from a Harris poll, and it talks about executives report a gap on thought leadership strategy and quality. So 83%, this is a Harris poll, said that organizations say they create thought leadership, but only 28% said they have a robust thought leadership strategy. Only 20% say that their thought leadership is very effective. And then I think this is interesting below. 78% agree most organizations check the box on thought leadership, but don't push the envelope on thought leadership.
Yeah.
What are your reactions to that?
It's not surprising. And how people measure this or self-select these different things could be interesting, right? Like, what percent of the U.S. population works out on a regular basis and what percent are overweight or not healthy, right? Like, there's probably some like, hey, oh yeah, I do that sometimes. And then like, hey, I actually is working kind of thing, which I think kind of ties into the bottom stat there, that 78% of people aren't really pushing the envelope. So I think creating thought leadership content is not like a one and done thing. It's an ongoing, thoughtful, and I'm hesitating to use the word strategy because I think if you put too much strategy behind thought leadership, you can kind of dilute your message a little bit versus just truly, thinking about and caring about your industry and putting out content on a regular basis. But what I'll say though is I think, I see a lot of people just kind of every once in a while do a very sparing amount of post or content that they probably consider thought leadership, but like truly to be a thought leader, you need to be showing up in people's feeds and inboxes on a weekly basis. It's not something you can kind of one and done do. So that would be my gut, visceral reaction to seeing these stats, is probably that there's not consistency. There's not any kind of background foundational strategy behind it, which means it's not going to be effective. And I think that's kind of true of not just thought leadership, but in a lot of things in life and business, that if you're not intentional behind it, if you're not working an actual workout plan and eating well on top of your workouts, you're probably not going to be healthy. So that's kind of my bad analogy and my thought on it.
Well, let's just dive just a little bit deeper, if you don't mind. The strategy itself. I mean, when I say that strategy, thought leadership strategy, what do you think that actually entails? And what, from your perspective, what should it entail?
Yeah. This kind of goes back to the other stat you had, about the data, right? Having like quantitative data in order to be a thought leader. Because I think people can overemphasize the importance of having a strategy, and they can spend a lot of time not getting started on creating content and being a thought leader because they're spending so much time on getting their strategy right before they get started. That again, it's a super high bar in their head that they have to have this gold, plated strategy in order to be successful. When in reality, it probably just means getting started. Right. Start talking to people, start publishing content, start getting engagement, and start seeing the questions people ask, start seeing the content that people are actually enjoying consuming from you, and then kind of refining your strategy from there. So it's definitely not a black and white thing. And for sure, I mean, I know you guys do it. We coach people on it too, of like, how do you actually have a strategy around it? Of like, for us, it means like, do you know who your audience is? Do you have some content pillars that you're going to kind of continually talk about? Do you have consistency as far as the platforms that you're posting on and the type of content you're posting? Those are all part of a strategy. But I found that a lot of people get stuck on that versus like, hey, I'm going to sit down and write a blog post, or I'm going to record a video and publish it. Like that strategy side of things allows people to procrastinate actually getting started. So this is where I'm just trying to kind of paint the picture of like what typically stops people from doing thought leadership is not a lack of strategy. It's a lack of getting started.
Oh, interesting. I find that with me personally, the strategy holdup is I always try and start with the problem. Like really what is the market's biggest problem? And then that's kind of what I want to focus on and answer, because I want to know what their problem is. They don't, it doesn't matter what my problem is. There's too many of those to address. But no, what are their issues, and really focus on that. And like that's where I get held up a lot, is really trying to figure out what is the big holdup. And we try and define that using ads, see what people react to. Any thoughts on that? Like, are you more out there like, look, let's just publish stuff and let's see what the market reacts to, and whatever they say, we'll kind of go in that direction? How do you do it?
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a great point. I think that a lot of executives and entrepreneurs are excellent problem solvers. So I think that is a great place to start when it comes to thought leadership, is what are those problems that you're solving? Like I mentioned earlier, some of the best thought leadership content comes from people talking about problems that they solved in their business or problems they solved in their client's business, depending on the work that they do too. So I think that's a great place to start, is just actually thinking about the problems that you're encountering on a regular basis. And we talk about this all this time in our community, that a lot of times once you get started with this stuff, you kind of develop the muscle for it. Where the first time you ever sit down to write a piece of content or record a video to post on LinkedIn, you're probably like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to talk about. I don't know who I'm talking to, all these different things. But by 6 months into it, you're going to have like this muscle developed where like you're seeing content everywhere. Like you just see ideas of things to talk about everywhere. Every time you're on a client call, every time you're engaging with a person at a networking event, you have ideas pop in your head based on the conversations that you're having, the things you're talking about. And at that point, it's almost a problem of I have too many ideas. I need to refine them down and make sure that I'm actually doing it. So that's kind of the catch-22 of it, is like when you first get started, it's hard to come up with anything. But then as you actually get into it, it's, you have endless different pieces of content ideas, because you're just so good at scanning your environment for problems to talk about and things to discuss in your thought leadership content. I don't know if that answered your question, Greg, but that's a reminder.
I forget what it was.
But, no, it's a problem.
It does become an affliction, trying to turn everything into a social media post. But no, I was talking about focusing on the problem. And let's switch gears. Let's talk a little bit here. We got about 10 minutes left. I want to talk about the role of the executives in the whole digital leadership, driving team engagement, visibility. Where do you put the executives? I mean, most executives, do they just push it over to their marketing team? What do you think is the best route to take in terms of thought leadership?
Yeah, this is a super loaded question. So I'll try not to offend people in my answers and what I'm thinking in my head. But executives need to be involved. And this is not something that, you can't have an executive who's a thought leader when their marketing team is, doing it for them. That's not thought leadership at that point. That's marketing content. It needs to be coming from the executive. And obviously people on your marketing team can be thought leaders and putting out content, or other people within your organization should be creating content and doing that side of things, separate of brand marketing content. But executives themselves need to have some ownership in the process. It cannot be something where they're checking a box and that's it. And obviously you can work with people to help facilitate the creation of it, but you can't just completely not think about it and have that be someone else's problem. So that would be one thought on that. The second, which we see often, is, does the executive buy into the idea of thought leadership? Meaning, are they okay with their staff creating content under their own name and having some sort of spotlight on them and not the company brand? Are they okay with their sales VP or their operational VP or their head consultant going out and putting out content, even though it's not being checked by marketing or not going through, legal to make sure that the correct things are being said? Because that's the other big holdup, I think, when it comes to thought leadership content, is that businesses get so caught up in trying to make their thought leadership content this polished, branded, thing where it's no longer thought leadership content. It's just another piece of marketing collateral. And by the time you publish it, it's been weeks because you've had multiple revisions going through a committee of people, and it's been bastardized because of the way it's been edited, that it's not there anymore. So that tends to be a big holdup in some industries more than others. There's more regulation beyond it, but I've seen it in every industry that happens. And typically it's because the executive team or leadership team is super risk averse. And sometimes it's super just petty. It's just literally like, hey, I don't want this person outshining me, or I don't want this person being the face of our company. Like we want to elect the face of our company who's going to be out there talking to people. But it's like, if you have a team member who wants to go out there and put out content, and I say team member, it can be a middle person, it could be a high executive. If you have someone doing that, you should be excited about it and own it and realize that you can't censor every single thing they're going to say, but on a net basis, it'll probably be good for your brand and good for your awareness. But again, I've seen a lot of that too, where there seems to be jealousy or some other things happening within an organization that can quickly squash what actually could be great thought leadership content.
Yeah, there's a good research report, and I'm blanking on who did it right now, but they talk about when the executive engages in thought leadership, it outperforms the company, always outperforms. And then if there is more people in the organization who are participating in addition to the executive, that even is another multiplier. So that example you gave about the ego-driven executive should be jumping in and doing the thought leadership and also encouraging the middle manager, whoever it was, yeah, you take a lane, I'll take this one, let's go, because it's just going to amplify everything.
Yeah, no, that is huge. I think that we've seen that for sure with our clients. Like when it comes to how fast do you want to get found online and have visibility, if you're talking about posting from your company page versus posting from your executive, your CEO, your founder's LinkedIn page, like it's a night and day difference as far as the amount of reach, engagement, and all that you're going to get out of it. And I don't have to name names, but you look at the business world nowadays, and executives' brands are directly tied to the company brands, and vice versa. And if you want to be out there doing things, you're going to go out there and you're going to put out content, and you don't need to be inflammatory. I'm looking at some executives, but like really, you look at like some of the most powerful, successful companies, and they have executives who are out there putting out content. So that'd be something I just highly say is that this is going back to our conference. Like if you are an executive and you're trying to be a leader in today's world, you need to be out there putting out content and doing this, because the companies that don't are going to be just washed away into obscurity as far as not being found and not having people actually want to work with them.
One thing that I talk about a lot is to try and integrate your personal life or some sort of emotional element into your content as well. What do you think about that? I mean, I always view it as a way to distinguish you from AI, from AI-driven content, and also it always performs great. I mean, people will get to like you because they know more about you. And any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's another big can of worms. You're asking all the good questions, Greg. You're a good interviewer.
My friend. All the worms.
Yeah, eating them worms. No, this is huge, and I think this is a central topic to personal branding, which again is kind of like the close relative to thought leadership, if not whatever. We're in the same family, right?
Right.
And I'm a big fan of being selective with how much you share in your personal life. And we actually had we did an interview with Dr. Julie Gerner. She runs a Substack called Ultra Successful. She's a business coach. She's a really good person on Substack if you don't follow her already. Okay. We were talking about imposter syndrome with her. And she brought this concept of kind of selectively sharing information from your personal life. And I'm kind of naturally a more private person. Maybe, I don't know, Greg, you know me more as a friend too, beyond just the business world. But and I don't like to overshare things. I don't want to have my family in every single post. Yeah. But there is something to be said about people getting to know you as a person beyond just talking about business content and that side of things. So I think it's more about just selectively sharing things. And we all know the people that every single time you see them post on LinkedIn, it has nothing to do with business, or like you said earlier, like solving problems or whatever else. It's strictly just like selfies and things that will get a crap ton of likes and engagement, because that's what people do. Our monkey minds like, liking people's pictures. But that's not going to move the needle for you. I know people with tens of thousands of followers who can't convert because their pictures are just of them, their dogs, their kids, whatever kind of thing. Right. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I think you just sprinkle in that personal stuff, and you personally decide how much of your personal life you want to put out there into the world, and kind of be intentional about it. So I think there's a fine line there, and it's not the same line for everybody, but I think that's just kind of part of that process, is figuring out what you want to do and how you want to be seen.
Yeah, I think Brene Brown said it best. She was like, you don't want to overshare. You don't want to share too much until people have given you permission or seem like they're interested in. She's talking about really deep personal problems.
Sure.
But
I don't have any of those, so I don't know.
Yeah. Let me talk to Emma about that. But no, you bring up good points about how do you balance it. And, I always look at it too as not just your personal stories, but what are your personal values,
Yeah.
Because you want people to trust you, so they don't need to know where you went on vacation all the time or, all that stuff. But I do think they need to know what you believe in and, what kind of business you believe in, your integrity, things like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, don't politics, religion, all that stuff's probably out.
Well, so I'll say I know one person in particular. We're not going to name names here, but like consistently posts about politics on different social media platforms. And I know this guy personally, and he doesn't care. Yeah, like that too. No, this person is in a business-to-business sales environment.
Oh, okay.
And you see other people talk about this, but he just wants to work with people like him. Okay. And so he actually doesn't care if he's divisive or puts things out there. I do not talk about politics intentionally, amongst other topics too. But there's something to be said about kind of saying, here's who I am, here's what I believe in. And you tend to get more diehard followers and people who really want to work with you, who fall into that camp of that things. Again, take away politics, but maybe other values, right? Other thought processes. Maybe it's approaches, right? We're both in the marketing world doing content. Like maybe your approach to doing content is something that will resonate with some people, and other people will look at that and say, I want nothing to do with that. But if you played it too timid, you'd never attract the right people too. So I think that's part of that whole thought process around thought leadership and personal branding too, is like, it is a good thing to make statements and opinions known as far as what you think, because that will attract the right audience. And the people that work with you anyways will just not like you. That's fine too.
I remember talking to a personal branding expert, and she's like, if you're going to do this, just have a point of view about something. She had a client who couldn't commit to anything. And it's a good point. Like, at least, put a line in the sand, stand for something, and it might ruffle some feathers, but like you said, it might make some fans as well.
No, for sure.
James, you and I could chat all day, and we've had day-long chat sessions. There's been a lot of wine involved, but
maybe a couple hours at least. Yeah,
maybe a couple hours. You're right. There were a couple hours involved. Thank you so much for coming on. We're at the top of the hour, so people have to get back to their busy lives. Sorry about the chat issue. Like James said, if you have some questions, put it in the LinkedIn comments and we will follow up. But I really appreciate your time, my friend. Great insights as always. And, really look forward to seeing more what Roelof Consulting is going to produce, and best of luck on Ignite this year. It sounds like it's going to be a great conference.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. And we will see you this Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Central for Kurt Anderson and Damon Pistolka. How two average Joes made it big on LinkedIn Live, using LinkedIn Live and establishing themselves as thought leaderships. Okay, thanks, everybody.